Welcome. Hey, guys, this is Nate SIMMS. He is not only Young Kriss and Don Reddy's primary producer, mixer, master, front of house engineer, sound guy.
Everything but the singing.
Everything but the singing.
I get paid not to sing.
But he's also my best friend. He and I have been friends since middle school. How many of y'all are going into 6th grade right now? Dang, that's crazy.
That's when we started hanging out.
Yeah, so there's a chance one of you goes on to have millions of streams. But also, no, looking around at the people next to you, you have a potential to be sitting next to the person that will be standing beside you in your wedding. You have the potential to be sitting next to the person that you're going to be best friends with 10 years from now. So just look around, and if you think that could be that person, great. If not, pray about it.
Yeah, figure it out.
Pray about it. But hey, I just wanted to have Nate talk. Nate's primary role, would you say, is to be behind the scenes? Like, you're doing stuff in the studio, back at the sound booth like last night, but being out in front of these kids, that's not really your...
This is not normal. I'm usually not the one on a microphone.
Yeah.
Usually I'm the one setting up the microphone so Young Kriss can sing or... Yeah. So this is new.
Yeah,
this is
so,
different.
Hey, can we go ahead and just give him a hand just for stepping out, sharing a little bit of his heart and his craft with you guys today? So, yeah, I just wanted to chat with Nate today and just get a little bit of his heart behind his craft and what he does. And it's brought to you today by Monster Energy. Thank you. They're not actually a sponsor. I just am really sleepy. So, Nate, go ahead and just give a little background to your history with music, because I know you didn't start in the studio. You started live. And, just talk a little bit about your journey doing music.
My mom grew up in a very, musical home. My dad did not, but my mom was very, involved with, choir. She played the flute. Her mom was very, just pushed that a lot. And so I already had that growing up, going into just life in general. I was adopted whenever I was 2 from another country, brought over here. And so already in the house there was a lot of music and things like that that I was exposed to. When I was 4 or 5, she wanted me to start taking piano lessons, which is pretty average. I feel like you guys take piano lessons at all? You guys, parents ask you to do that? Oh. You said no.
Haters.
I feel you. I thought it was boring too. Piano is now the thing I play the most because of what I do. But at the time, she was wanting me to do that just to learn how to read music, hand-eye coordination, all that kind of stuff. What I really wanted to do was play drums, and I wanted to have a drum set in the house, and my mom was not a huge fan of that. But what ended up happening was, for whatever reason, God told him to get me a drum set, and ended up being able to take lessons on drums for a long time. Started playing in church. I was given opportunities when I was in 5th grade to start playing in different services and stuff. I wasn't crazy good, but there was just a lot of people in my life who were pouring into me, who believed in me. And so I got to use those gifts and abilities from a very early age, and got to, learn to play with people, learned how to instead of just playing keys or drums by myself in my room, it was working with a band, working with people singers and other directors. And that just kind of kept evolving into, me teaching myself guitar, being a part of choirs and things like that. And eventually got to the point where I was cool, I play all these instruments better than the people I know around me. Why don't I just start putting stuff together on my own? And kind of kept going that way for a little bit, to the point where I was making my own music and instrumentals and things like that, making covers of songs. You and I had a band at one point.
Yeah, we did.
We were
called
played together.
Going Nowhere, because that's exactly what we did.
Yes. We had bands and stuff together. We did different church choir stuff, and just other activities. You and I eventually whenever I started getting into stuff that involved studio, which is recording people. The songs you guys heard last night, those all start in like a studio where, you know, we got to set up equipment and you're coming up with ideas. He and I worked a lot together whenever we were learning that stuff, whether it was software or just having fun figuring that stuff out. So, yeah, it started from very young, learning piano and not caring about music theory, not caring about how to read sheet music, and it turned into now being able to do what I do now.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Hey, talk real quick just about, because it's like, we were talking the other night just about, you're like, if I would have even 2 years ago told that version of Nate, like what I get to do now, the equipment that I get to use for my craft, all that, like, I wouldn't believe it. How do you look back at, let's say, 2017, 2018, we were making goofy food rap with
on
stuff
iPads.
yeah, on iPads. How do you look back and be like, man, if I had the equipment, if I had this, or are you like, I'm so glad I started with what I had and learned on stuff that maybe like isn't the highest quality?
Right. I think it's all a process, right? And I'm thankful for the thing, like more than anything, not like pieces of equipment or like having access to these studios or whatever. Like the people I had around me were super important, right? There's a rule that people talk about where it's like you want to have people who are walking through life with you, but you also want to have people who are like pouring into you. That are like discipling you, people who like, for a long time, I had friends that were older than both of us, like Young Kriss. He was first like discipling me. We weren't just like working on music. He was like inviting me over to his house. We were reading the Bible and stuff together. So like having people like that around me was more important than the equipment. But even now, I'm like, I don't know. I'm one of those people who. You could give, like, anybody. You could give a 3-year-old, like, the most advanced anything in the world, the most advanced computer, like, car, with what I do with, like, you can give them the most advanced microphones and synths and keyboards and all this other stuff, software, but they're not going to know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Versus someone who, like, I could give Pharrell GarageBand on an iPod, and he would be able to create heat because that's what he does. So I trust the process in a lot of what we do because it's not just being able to go big super fast and have the most money and have the most things. It's knowing what to do with what you're been given. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
knowing how
stewarding that well.
Yeah, knowing how to use what's in front of you and then growing with it.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think that really speaks to, like, you guys have these passions, these interests, these hobbies that maybe you're just starting to learn. Start with what you got. I think there's this temptation to be like, oh, Victoria wants to be an artist. She needs this iPad Pro with the nicest Apple Pencil to be able to create this art. But Victoria is able, with just a pencil and a piece of paper, to make something awesome. Like, you got to start with what you have. What you have, like, you can grow with what you got. And if you can't, then you need to probably reevaluate why you're doing what you're doing.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm really interested. We don't have to talk too much about the first half of this, but you started, I mean, you were in bands, but you kind of had this thing. You were like, do I want to be a frontline guy? Do I want to be in the foreground? Or do I want to serve? Do I want to perform or do I want to serve? How did you navigate that? Because you have really found your calling, it feels like, and your niche in the back line. But not a lot of people think about that. A lot of people think if I'm going to do music, I got to be the guy.
Yeah, it was really weird. When I was in middle school, like y'all's age, I was the kid running around like with a cowbell in the middle of like when y'all are like singing songs during youth group and stuff like that. I was that kid. And now like I would much rather like be by myself. Like I'm not like super extroverted. My personality has just kind of evolved over time. But there was a season where I was like, oh, like if I can do all this, then like I need to be the front guy The truth is, I'm not a good singer. That's the really raw truth, is that I was gifted with a lot of other things but that, and over time I realized exactly like where my calling fit, where my gifts aligned with what I felt like I could do. And so instead of like expecting too much of myself or just pushing myself to do something that wasn't right, it was like, okay, cool, like how can I best align with what I've got going on with what God wants for me?
Yeah.
Because that's going to be better than anything. Like, could I make myself sound better with different tune and software and all this other stuff? Sure, but like my abilities, what he's been able to give me, goes so much farther with what I do now.
Yeah.
Being able to play that background role and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think it kind of comes with time. It's something you grow into, something you mature with. You don't have a lot of just yes people around you. You know what I mean? You don't just want a bunch of people who are just like, yeah, you can do anything. Yes, you can do whatever. It's like having the people around you who can tell you like the hard truths, or the people who can like encourage you while also being real, is so important. Building with teams like that I'm all about that.
That's good. And now I think a lot of people think like Nate can just lay down these sick beats, which he can. But there's something deeper about what you do that a lot of artists, like sometimes I'll just draw something or do something in Photoshop just to do it. It feels like you're really intentional with complementing the lyrics and complementing the message that you and, let's say, Kriss, like you have a direction for the song, and you don't want it to just be loops that he's singing over. You want it to emphasize the message of that. How do you think about your job as an artist as coming behind the message and the lyrics of a song to really complement that?
A lot of what Young Kriss and I do whenever we write music together, we do it in the same room, right? So it's not often that he's sending me something and then I'm making something to it and then sending it back. A lot of times it's us in the same room. A really important part of that process is us just like talking, is us just like having community with each other. We talk about our days. If there's a day where, there's bad traffic on the way to the studio and his kids are sick and, he's just having like a rough day, instead of like, oh, okay, well, let's just make a happy song to get out of that, I would rather like tap into those feelings. I would rather tap into what he's experiencing in that moment, because I feel like something more real is going to come from that, right? Instead of it being like, the goal in anything we make is not like, what are people going to like? I want to make the best music possible, not the most popular, not the most viral, not the most anything like that. I want to make his best music possible, because the most authentic version of him is going to come through that.
Yeah.
So like even songs like Too Serious that like do really, really well, that came from like a very real moment that we all had, me, Kriss, and Don Reddy in the studio. It came from a very real moment.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like, let's just do whatever. When Tears Fall, that song last night he sang where he was talking about going through his pain and stuff like that. That was a very real thing where he was talking about a lot of things he had seen in his life with different people who had fallen away, but also talking about things he'd seen from like church hurt and stuff like that. Being able to tap into that is very important. And then musically, that's just something that's been very intuitive, like not being able to go too complicated, not being too, you want to serve the artist in that way. I want to be able to provide the canvas and the paint and kind of like give him a background, but what I do should never be the focus. What I do should be complimenting him. It should be supporting him, and I don't ever want it to be something that's just, I don't know. It's a weird balance, because you also don't want it to just be looped and boring.
Right.
And I think that just comes from like being musical in general. Like I said, I was first doing stuff live, instrumentation, like playing with bands, playing in different services. That impacted me a lot because it wasn't just me getting in the studio and taking this loop and that drum break and this and that and putting it together. I was playing with real people. I was playing with real musicians. And so it was like, musicians don't play perfectly. Musicians don't do the same thing every time. Like, let's build it out that way where it feels more organic, where it feels natural. Even if I'm not using a real piano or a real guitar in this song, like, I want to make it feel like just more organic, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. Kind of to go off that, you've spoken really intentionally about like an authentic song that conveys a true, like, real message is kind of your favorite thing.
For sure.
Why would you rather have, and maybe you wouldn't, and feel free, little subtle flex. Last year, you had a song that was used by a major network.
Yeah, I had a song in the NFL.
He had a song.
Yeah.
I was going to let him say. He had a song placed with the NFL that was played last season that got heard by millions of people.
Right.
Every week. Maybe not every, but like really often. Would you rather have a song like that where they could write you a fat check and it's like going to be heard by millions of people, or would you rather have a song that flops but is really true to your heart?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of opportunities to work on stuff for, like, a lot of what I do with Young Kriss is, like, some of my favorite work. And I've had opportunities to do stuff with, like, other bigger artists. I had stuff with the NFL, with the NBA. I had stuff get pitched for movies like Fast and Furious, for different TV shows and things like that. But some of my favorite piece of work is the stuff that I've done with Young Kriss. There's an EP out that he did back in 2019 that I produced called Depravity. And while it's not like the most up-to-date sounding piece of work I've ever done, it is some of my favorite music that I've ever produced because it came from a very real place. Yeah. Regardless of whatever trends were happening, regardless of, like, TikTok and stuff wasn't really happening back then, so it wasn't about going viral, but instead of it being about, like, what are people going to listen to, what's popular right now, let's just copy that. Yeah. We made it from a very real place. And so now, years later, I'm looking back and I'm like, oh, this music still speaks to me, and I feel like the people who still listen to it, it speaks to them too because it came from that real, authentic place. It didn't come from, like, the intention of let's be popular, let's blow up, let's go viral. It came from, like, the moments of talking about, like, the depravity of humanity and being able to be real about that. Yeah, that's good. So I almost would rather choose the authentic route every time because I'm going to look back on it and enjoy that music more. And that's, to me, that's almost all that matters. Yeah, and it's like, of course, you got to provide for your wife and your cats. You know, my wife and my 2 cats, yes. They're pretty great. His cats are pretty great. His wife's great too. That's crazy. But it's like, yeah, there's just something about being real and being raw. And I think that can translate to whatever you guys are doing. It's like whether you are an artist or a writer or you want to be an influencer, the fake mask that you put on isn't going to be fulfilling. It's like it might get you success, but being raw and being who you are and letting people know who you are, I think it goes a lot further. People, like, in what we do with music, like, we have a phrase where we say the listener isn't stupid, right? Like, people can tell whenever, like, something's, like, not authentic. Like a template. It's not, people can just tell. And it's like, it's not something that's obvious and something that's audible. It's like a sixth sense, right? But I have a feeling a lot of you, even if you hadn't listened to, like, Young Kriss's music before last night, there was probably something there that was like, even if R&B music isn't, like, your first go-to, you couldn't deny, like, the substance that was there. You know what I mean? And that's what I want to strive for more than anything. There are songs we have that aren't, like, that don't do the numbers that Too Serious does. They don't stream super, super well. They don't go super viral. But everything we do, I want to pursue making the best version of it possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Something that I think is really important for us in this room is you didn't do this alone. This has been anything but an alone journey. There's this African proverb. It's like, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Go ahead, and you don't have to get super in detail, but could you name somewhere from 3 to 5 of like the people in your life that have poured into you? Because they might have this version of this person, and if you don't say me, I won't be offended, but I will remember.
No, obviously,
No,
like we've
honestly,
done a lot of stuff
kidding.
together. Like, as much as I've been in the studio doing stuff with like Young Kriss and making songs, like he and I have done that. Whenever we were together in the same city, it was happening all the time. You know what I mean? Coming over to the studio, working on different things. Some of the songs Chris did last night, he was a part of helping write and stuff like that. So obviously, like Chris, Don, those guys have really poured into me. They were the first guys that ever took a chance on me as a producer too.
Yeah.
I was just a bedroom producer kid, and Chris invited me over to a spot where he had a little setup one time, showed him some beats, messed around, made a song that night, and he asked me, he was like, do you want to be my producer? And that was in 2017. So we've been doing this a very long time, right? It's not just been an overnight whatever. So building with that team first is so important.
Yeah.
Outside of like those three, honestly, like the people who poured into me the most were the people I was serving with. I was serving a lot in youth ministry. When I was in high school, I was not a Christian, but it was where I had the most opportunities to use my gifts, and it was where all my friends were too, because I'd just grown up in the church. So even though in most of high school I was not like a professed Christian, I was still around that a lot. And so like the youth worship pastor we had, where he got to invest in us, in me, in what we did.
We were stupid high schoolers.
Stupid high schoolers.
Y'all think y'all are dumb? You should have seen us. It was
the patience and stuff that those guys had with me, with us, is huge, because and that's where I'm like developing those relationships with people outside of like your age group, like the volunteers that are here, like adult volunteers and stuff like that. Like they really, really care about you guys. They any chance, like, I mean, we went out last night, and like volunteers were like sharing stories about some of you guys and how much they just like are so excited to like see you guys continue to grow and all this other stuff. Like invest in those relationships. Like don't be afraid to share things with them. Like they're there for y'all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, those people in my life, those volunteers, those people who were with me when I walked through stuff in high school, and you know, being a part of worship bands and stuff like that. That was super important.
That's good. I had a Monster Energy burp. It's fine, guys. Hey, let's go ahead and give Nathan a hand just for sharing. Yeah, really appreciate having him out here. We have a few minutes to do a Q&A. I see some people that are in here that I know make music. I also see people in here that don't make music that I think could hear a word from him. So let's go ahead. Anybody got some questions? Yeah, Emily. What? When were we in a band?
High school.
Yeah.
So we graduated high school in 2017.
Yeah.
So it was
I
years
know,
before
we're
that.
old. I know.
That's old?
I
Are we
heard
old?
like, oh my gosh.
2017?
Yeah. How old were you in 2017? That was 7 years ago. You were 5?
That's
Oh,
insane.
man. 6. Okay, not much better. That's fine.
I have never felt old, and now I do.
Yeah. So we played together in church in middle school when some of you guys were not alive yet.
Right.
Basically. But we did talent shows and coffee shops and stuff like that.
We never released anything, so you can't go find anything.
No.
But ooh.
Boo, I know. Yeah. Bailey. Do you have any siblings?
I have a sister. My sister, her name is Dasha. She's 2 years younger. She also does music, and she was also adopted. We've never done a ton of music together, but she is like, yeah, I really like her. She's like one of my best friends now.
It's probably good.
Yeah, it's probably good.
Probably good. Anybody? Yeah, Victoria. Are you jealous of Young Kriss? Or no, have you been jealous of Young Kriss? How did you deal with that? Also, have you met Jack Black?
Have I met Jack Black? I'm curious why you asked that. I'll get to the other one, but I'm just curious. Why?
Yeah, his music is
His music
funny.
is funny. I've never met Jack Black.
The closest thing is my college roommate. Is the closest thing to Jack Black I think either of us has
his
ever
college
met.
roommate was a character. Have I ever been jealous of Young Kriss? No. No, I've never been jealous of him. There are things that he's a very outgoing guy. You guys all saw that. He's a very extroverted guy. He has a lot of energy. He loves to hang out. He gets energy from being around people and students. He was a student pastor, so like he loved doing that. He and I's personalities are different, but they complement each other so well because he's able to push me in a lot of areas, whether it's like just being excellent, like being present with people, and I'm also able to help him like triple check things, like think about things through and not just,
You guys are a team.
Yeah, we work together a lot. So jealousy has never really been a thing because it's not, I don't know, I've never, like I said, my personality has kind of evolved over time where like I don't want the spotlight. I would rather like sit in a room with like people who are a lot like me, artists and like musicians and producers, and just sit around and talk that way than I would like be on a stage entertaining. So I think our roles we just understood our roles and our gifts, and instead of letting like things come in between that, like we've stayed close to each other. Like our families are best friends. My wife is hanging out with his wife and kids right now, and we've stayed close to each other in that way, and like stayed focused on the mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something, too, that's worth noting is, like, you guys win and grow as a team. Like, it's not like Kriss is here, Nate has to catch up. When they win, and this is something it's good to have this in a friend, in somebody you work with, and somebody you collaborate with. It's like when Kriss wins, Nate wins, too.
Yeah, we win together. It's not the what we do together is like when things started going up, it wasn't like Young Kriss got popular and then leaves Nate in the dust. It was like, look at what we're doing together as a team. Like, let's just keep going. You know what I mean? Like, now we get to do what we do all the time, every day. So, yeah, there are a lot of ways too that he has taken care of people like me and stuff. Like when there was times when like I didn't have money for food or this and that, or ways he wanted to bless me, he looked out for me. He and Don have both done so much. They've given me a lot, and they could do nothing else for me, and I would still be extremely grateful because they've done so much for me in my life. The way they've looked after me, discipled me. I'm so grateful that there's not even room for jealousy to like get in my heart anymore. Does that make sense? Yeah.
What are the name of your cats?
My cat's names. Oh man, my first cat's name is Luna. She is like a brown tortoise shell. She's the prettiest thing on earth. And then I have a chonky cat named Miles.
Got him while he lived in Colorado.
Yes, I did. I lived in Colorado for a little bit, and I got him when I was out here. He is built like a tank, and he is the opposite energy. Luna is like an angel, and Miles is just all over the place. I'll show you pictures. I have pictures on my phone if you're curious later.
Yeah. Yeah, D'Angelo.
So he asked, how often do I like start on something and then just end up not liking it halfway through and just ditch it, or do I like come back to it? The answer is like 50-50. There are times where I will go back through like old hard drives and I will like find something and I'll be like, that is so hard. I can't believe like I didn't do nothing with it, and I'll update it. And sometimes it'll turn into something. I'm trying to think if there was a song that happened with. I can't think of one off the top of my head where that's like immediately happened, but there are ideas like that happen. But there's just as many ideas sitting on my laptop that are like loops or ideas that like will never be seen by anyone or heard by anyone, just because it's like it's more, instead of it being like I have to make 3 full songs a day, it's more of just like, let's just get the idea out. There are days I'll go in and then instead of like making a whole beat, I'm just making drum patterns. Or there's days where I go in and I'm just like working on melodies and arrangements and chords. I feel like having like, instead of like it being about getting like writer's block or beat block, just being able to like have different things. If I'm not looking to make a beat that day, then like it's me getting inspired by something, or like finding like new presets and stuff I have, or it's, you know, making drums one day, or it's working on mixing one of Young Kriss's songs the next day. Like, just continually like evolving. I don't put the pressure on myself to like, I have to make this many beats a day. I have to make this many like 10 out of 10 songs a day. It's like, I just want to move with the wave of inspiration. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I would say it probably wasn't always like that, right? There were lots of times. I mean, when we've worked together or we've worked with Chris or Don, and it's like we have to just tough it out. And I would say, and I think you would agree, there is some value to just finishing something, even if it's not great.
Yes.
But I think there's also a lot of value in not giving up, but like knowing it's like, okay, I'm not feeling inspired by this. It's okay to move on.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very spiritual thing, like creativity, right? And I don't mean that in the sense of like Jesus and the Holy Spirit and things like that. It's a very like internal, introspective thing, and like being able to understand inspiration and stuff like that. It's a very supernatural thing, and I think it's something that comes from God, because God himself is a creator and talks about that in Genesis. So like, I don't attribute anything else to like anything outside of him, but being able to find that wave of inspiration and to move in almost like that flow state is very, it's a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know if it's right now, but yeah.
Yeah. We got time for, I think, 2 more questions. Andrew, we haven't seen one from you yet. Ooh, how long does it take to make a beat?
It depends. There are things I do where I challenge myself that I call them 10-minute drills, where I will set a timer and hit it, and it goes for 10 minutes, and I have to make a beat in that amount of time, and that just pushes me to like move fast. Those are like the moments where like I just want to be inspired and not overthink things, right? It's about like, instead of like finding the perfect kick drum, it's like, you know what, like let's just use what we got and get it going, get the idea out. A lot of times when I'm working with artists, and even Young Kriss, like artists are very, as much as I'm a very creative person, artists are very creative as well, and a lot of times that can lead to like impatience. And you want to be able to take an idea that they have or to inspire them very, very quickly. So a lot of times in the studio, I'm making beats very fast because I want to be able to get that idea out, get people inspired so that they can start doing what they need to do, which is write, record, all that other stuff. There are other times where I've had beats that have taken months and years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are times where those things can take a long time, and that can be a matter of having people replay parts. Like if I'm playing like a trumpet part on like a software, and then I want to get a real trumpet player to do it. Finding them, getting it to them. You know, maybe there's a song we write that ends up not being, you know, the right person singing it, like having that to get recut by somebody else to sing it, different things like that. It can take a long time. On average, I would say anywhere between like 20 to 40 minutes on like a regular day. If I'm pushing myself, if I'm in the studio, it's got to be quicker. But I also trust the process, and sometimes that means it can take way longer.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Yeah, Dane. Who is your favorite artist?
My favorite artist?
You can't say Young Kriss or Don Reddy.
Honestly, it's J. Cole.
J. Cole.
And I don't want no questions about the Drake or Kendrick beef, but it is really J. Cole. I have loved a lot of the stuff I do is not inspired by him as an artist, as in like rap music and stuff like that, but his mindset, the way he treats people and his team is super, super cool. A lot of what I saw him do is he loves to get like other people involved in his music. He loves to include other musicians and stuff. Yeah. And that's been very, very cool. Sometimes that's a fault of mine is I want to include everybody on everything. Like if I know a piano player and a trumpet player and a bass player and, like I know these people who we can put together this arrangement, whatever. Like sometimes I want to put all that together and it doesn't always make sense. But yeah, J. Cole. Also, he's cold.
He is.
He's very, very, he's got bars.
Yep.
I'm not going to lie.
Okay, I see two hands, and we'll do these quickly. Yeah, Aiden. If you were
Is he asked the Disney princess question again?
If you were to be a Disney princess.
Okay, so I was in here when you asked Young Kriss this question, and I already had an answer, so I don't know if that's crazy or not.
Go ahead.
So Aladdin, Jasmine gets like the whole, like, she's like a princess, and like, she's got the whole, like, everything, right? Because he, like, gets a house, and he's, like, super rich.
He provides for his family.
Yeah, I feel like that's an easy answer, right? And a flying carpet.
Very practical.
Yeah.
Very practical.
That's it.
Right?
Easy.
And you get a pet tiger.
I forgot about, is that the same one?
She gets a pet tiger, right? Am I correct? Okay.
Yeah, and I already have 2 cats, so that's the same thing. So I'm in there. Yeah.
Great. Already had an answer. Very practical. Yeah, Emily, last question. What are your thoughts on Frank Ocean?
Like musically or what? He's a genius. I love his stuff. I think he is incredibly talented. Blonde is top 10 albums of all time. Yeah, he's great.
Dang.
I don't know if there's much else to say about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a quick last thing. Give me your Mount Rushmore of artists all time.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Artists. Yeah, just 4.
Not you of all time.
Yeah, why not?
Every artist.
Why not? Or
Young Kriss, Don Reddy.
Would anybody like a specific hip hop, R&B, rap? Does everybody want his all time? Rap? Does everybody want to hear his rap top 4? No particular order?
No order?
Yeah,
My
they're
Mount
all
Rushmore?
on Mount Rushmore.
Andre 3000. Drake. Chill. Kendrick. And Jay-Z. That's my 4.
That's good.
Of all time?
Of all time. Oh, now.
And producers?
Yeah, why not? This is a very niche question. Only he will understand the answers.
Rick Rubin. I don't know if y'all know who that is. Rick Rubin is on there. Dr. Dre. Metro Boomin. And I need one more.
Nate Sims.
Not yet. Of all time, Timbaland.
That's good.
Timbaland.
Already. Hey, let's go ahead and give Nate a hand one more time. Tell him thanks for being here.